A park ranger stands forward-facing in uniform of a tan flat hat, gray shirt, and green trousers. The ranger stands next to a cannon mounted on a two-wheel carriage. Behind the ranger is a thick wooded area.
Hey kids, welcome back. It's Ranger Emily again. And just like I said yesterday, today we are going to construct our own marshmallow cannons and practice a little bit with them, learn a little bit more about how these cannons fired a projectile and what happened to them once they left the cannon. Now, in order to make this cannon, you are going to need a few things. You are going to need a balloon or multiple balloons. You're going to need a plastic cup. Doesn't have to be this size, but it does need to have a pretty wide base there, and it needs to be pretty long. And then of course you're going to need your ammunition. You're going to need your marshmallows. Now I'm going to show you how to do this. Make sure you do have a grown-up present while you're doing this, especially because we are going to need to use scissors to cut the bottom off of our cup. Now that actually is the first step. You're going to take your cup, you're going to cut off the bottom. Not too much of it, but about 2/3 of the way down. And so then you're going to use the end that's open on both ends, and you're going to hang on to that. The next thing you're going to do is you're going to take your balloon and you're going to tie it up at the end. So you want to have it tied at one end. You're going to take your scissors and you're actually going to cut the top off that other end. Now, once you do that, you're going to have this hole in your balloon. You're going to stretch that hole over the wider part of your plastic cup, and eventually you're going to have something that looks like this. So you'll notice, again, the tied end of my balloon, I stretched it over the wider part of my cup, and so if I hold it this way, you can see we're going to be able to make a cannon out of this. Now, I'm going to show you really quickly kind of how it works, although I bet most of you can already figure it out. When you go to fire the cannon, it's really helpful if you let that marshmallow get right down in that little space when you pull back the balloon, and then when you launch it, you'll notice it goes up and then it comes down, because guess what? What goes up must come down. We are having to deal with gravity. Now obviously we're using marshmallows, but these 12-pound howitzers are going to be using real cannonballs, but gravity works the same. So in order to aim these cannons, we are going to have to figure out the exact angle that they need to go up or down in order for them to hit their target. Now once we figure that out, we are going to use this crank right here, and we're going to turn it up or down, so that's going to change the angle of our gun. The other thing that the team has to think about is how far they want their cannonball to go before it explodes. Remember yesterday, we talked about our two types of projectiles. We have our shell, we have our case. Both of these would be designed to be fired and to fly for a certain amount of distance before they exploded. And that delay was going to be determined by a fuse. And a fuse was going to be a piece of rope or string. It's going to be attached and it's going to be lit when the cannon is fired. And those men that are back at the limber chest that we talked about yesterday, their job is going to be to figure out exactly how long to cut that fuse in order to make sure that that cannonball goes the distance it's supposed to go before it explodes. That's a lot of calculations for them to do in their head. Remember, we didn't have calculators back in 1863. Now they are going to have a little bit of help. Inside the lid of the limber chest, there will be a table of fire. And you'll notice there's an angle of elevation, and then there's a range, and then it's going to talk about the distance, the time of flight, and that is how they are going to determine how long the fuse needs to be. Now, that is a lot of things to do in a battle. Remember, these men are in battle, they're being fired at. They needed to be so good at their math and so good at their science. Now, the men here are going to be part of Waters Alabama Battery. Remember from yesterday, a battery is a collection of cannon. And when they are engaged on Missionary Ridge, which is where we are, the Battle of Missionary Ridge, November 25th, 1863, they're going to be firing out onto Union troops who are coming up the ridge. Now, the Union troops are going to come up pretty fast, and what happens to Waters' Alabama battery is they realize that they don't even have really the 30 seconds to fire their cannon. They need to get out. And so they're actually going to abandon their guns, but not before they actually push one down the hill, and they're going to need to abandon their guns and get away before the Union rises to the crest of Missionary Ridge, which they do by the evening of November 25th. Now, thankfully for you, you don't have to abandon your cannon. I encourage you to play around at home, maybe even try mini marshmallows, see how that changes, how far you can shoot your marshmallow, maybe put some targets out and challenge yourself. So you guys can play around with this. You can kind of get an idea, a little bit at least, for how cannons would have been fired in the Civil War. Again, keep an eye out for other programs that are coming up this weekend as we commemorate the 157th anniversary of the Battles for Chattanooga. Have fun, and thanks for watching.